most of us like to go home at the end of the day. And it's certainly a challenge for some people to go home at the end of the day. Some of them really struggle with their affordability. I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about home. And some of this stuff will come up in just a second so we know what's coming up next. There we go. When you look at what the government has done for those that struggle with affordability, they decided to build social housing. And we manage lots of that here in the city. You might be wondering, what social housing is and so forth. We'll talk about that. The past has been very successful. In fact, when you look across this country, lots of social housing has been very successful. But often when we find success in something, we like to redo it. It's kind of like before the days of cell phones and you were making use of the facilities and you had nothing else to read, so you read the directions on the shampoo bottle. Anyone do that? Lather, rinse, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. And that's what we do when we find success, isn't it? We just think that we're going to do it again, we can do it again, we're going to find the same success. That doesn't work here. So when you take a look at what social housing is and the future, there are some challenges there. The state of social housing across this country is not what we expected it to be. How did we get here? So social housing is actually government-owned housing for the most part. In some jurisdictions, ownership has been downloaded to housing agencies or municipalities. Recipients of social housing, they're tested for income, assets, their family composition. And there's a bunch of other criteria that if we were to take, the next 3 hours, I could explain it to you, but I'm thinking I've got about 3 seconds to explain it to you. So really, it's all about your income, and we try to help them there. When you move into social housing, some of the challenges there are the fact that within Canada, 30% are renters. Many of those in social housing are living in places that are overcrowded. You think of overcrowded, I remember growing up, I've never had my own bedroom. I shared with my brothers. I still don't have my own bedroom. I share my wife's. Every now and then, I'm not welcome. But overcrowding is a challenge. We sometimes look at very large families and wonder what we're going to do there. So it's been a very good social program. Social housing has worked for many families across this country. But the problem with social programs is that they're consumption-based. The New York Times just put out an article last week, actually. They're the largest social housing provider in North America. In fact, they're the largest landlord in North America. They have over 400,000 people living with them, half the size of Edmonton. 60,000 of those folks live in substandard homes because they can't afford the backlog. In fact, the backlog bill is $17 billion to fix it, to bring it up to a standard that's acceptable. So we do social housing, and we decided that some of our properties need to come down. We met with the community most recently on the north side of the city. And one of them said, why are you tearing down social housing? My home is 40 years old, just like these buildings are, and I'm not tearing it down. Well, if you don't maintain your home, it ends up being cheaper to tear down than it is to fix it up. You see, social housing has been consuming the asset. If you stop the funding source for social programs, you stop the program. Most social programs are not sustainable. In fact, when government puts out social programs or nonprofits decide that they're going to do something to help a neighbor, these programs, you have to keep funding them. Social housing's been no different. It's not simply good enough just to keep the lights on. You have to replace the shingles. You have to upgrade the insulation. Folks, you have to repaint, repair. You have to replace and renew. And that's real estate. It's not a social program. Real estate is maintaining your property. You may be thinking, great, a new coat of paint, new cabinets, a tub, that's important, and we're good to go. The challenge is that we won't be able to meet the demand by doing that alone. We have to, yes, build more homes for the demand. In this community, in this city alone, there are over 5,300 families waiting for an affordable place to call home. We also have to help the people. And that relates to the system. The system does exactly the opposite. In fact, when you take a look at the system, systems sometimes actually suppress or trap instead of free them. Systems that not promoting success, and they're pulling people down. We need ones that lift up rather than push down. Within that system, we need to change the equation. It's not simply good enough to keep doing things the same way. Henry Ford once said, or was asked the question, what would happen if I needed, or if I had asked the people, rather, what they wanted? And the people would have said, I want a faster horse. He built a car. Folks, we need to build more cars. We need more innovation. We need to do things differently. The inputs are often the same, so let's change the equation. Home is so crucial. When you take a look at what Evan Sindall, he's the president of the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, he recently said this a few months ago. Safe, adequate, and affordable housing is a catalyst that enables Canadians to achieve their goals, from raising healthy children to pursuing education, jobs, and opportunity. When affordable housing is in short supply, Canada's whole economy suffers. And he said that just back in October. So it's not either or. It's both and. Often we think it's going to have to be the left or it's going to have to be the right. It's going to be black or white. No, we have to do both those things. We have to invest in people and we have to invest in property. We can do social good and still grow the real estate. When you bought your first home, you understood it would grow in value over time. In fact, you hoped it would grow in value over time. Some of you were really excited after 5 years. You went back for your refinancing and the banker said, you can take some money out if you want. And some of you did that to pay off some bills. It starts to pay you back. You can start to leverage that equity or that growth. In the affordable housing sector here in Edmonton, there are a few exceptions. I want to mention two of them. One is Brentwood Housing on the west side of the city. It helps families, teenage moms, seniors live in a home that they can afford. They've invested over the last 40 plus years in upgrades and new technology, and their homes are well maintained and they have money in the bank. And they're still helping people who really struggle to afford a home in the city. Our organization has built over 600 homes in the last 13 years, and we're really excited because now we can take some of that equity growth and go build some more homes. These shouldn't be the only examples. It should be the rule. This is what we call in the real estate sector the triple bottom line. It's really about having your cake and eating it too. The triple bottom line is about social, financial, and environmental sustainability. We need all that. Let me illustrate. We love our boxes, and you'll see here a little bit of a box. It's a 2x2, and if you've gone to university, you've probably seen these things before. You see on the far bottom left, you see low, and to the far right, high, and as you go up the axis, it's high as well. And you look at social housing and real estate. If you go do real estate really well, you're driving shareholder value. If you're doing social housing really well, you're driving social outcomes. Now, if you're doing neither of that really well, usually you're called a slumlord. If you do both of those things very well, what do you get? You get sustainability. You get real estate that can generate some wealth to help the people you're trying to help, in addition to what you've already done. Now, if you really look at the core of what this is, you see that you're trying to drive profit if you're in real estate. And a lot of people who do social work and try to, in the service industry, they often talk about having a purpose, a social purpose. Now, I really like to combine those two words. And what you get is profit with a purpose for people. Now, we love our boxes, don't we? Those 2x2 boxes. Some of us live in a really nice box, don't we? It's got a really nice peak, lots of doors, lots of boxes within there. Some of you are actually getting a little excited about the boxes that you have in your house. You're really organized. When you move, you like to get all the boxes the same. You label them. The challenge is, folks, that some of our neighbors are living in cardboard boxes. It's 2017. No one should live in a cardboard box anymore. Everyone deserves to go home tonight to a place that they can afford. Thank you.